Welcome back into another episode of Locked On Seminoles. We're going to talk Florida State recruiting, what you think of the 2024 recruiting class right here on Locked On Seminoles.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into another episode of Locked On Seminoles. Today's live stream is going to be about which players you think Florida State has in the 24 class right now, not the kids that are uncommitted, that you like and why. If you have questions, I'm more than happy to discuss them. I'm going to go through some of my favorite players in the class. I've got a list up here on another tab. I'm going to kind of go over them as I talk through the show. I'll take your questions periodically. We'll discuss, maybe talk about, okay, Todd, the offensive lineman, which position does he play or positions? Talk about Wayne McCoy. How does Mike Norvell use him in the different spots for receiver? Because he could certainly play different ones, and he's a punt return guy as well. Basically, just want to give people a capsule as much as possible from a big box perspective about what Florida State has right now in their recruiting class and how it can get better and why this is so important long-term for the program. They hit the home run in this class because you just had a very good season, 13-0, you're a nationally ranked team, all those things. You should have a class like this, and here's the fruits of your labor. So we're going to get into that now. I'm going to start off just talking a little bit, and again, anybody can comment, ask a question whenever they want, fire away. I'm not here to really get too specific about it, but we will talk about some of these guys. I do really quick want to mention Prize Picks is today's sponsor on the show. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy. So the class itself is very interesting for me because you can look at it from a different perspective anytime you want to look at offense, defense, whatever, because there's so many guys that are versatile. Let me give you an example. Jaden Parrish is one of my favorite players in this class. He played down in South Florida in Palm Beach County at Atlantic High School. I saw him in the spring. I've seen his film, met him. This is a young man that's really soft-spoken off the field, but the way he plays middle linebacker changes your perspective, and it makes you think a little bit more Mickey Andrews and old school Florida State because he plays downhill, and that's obviously what you want a middle linebacker to do. But at the same time, he's a young man that I was surprised. He plays hook curl and all the flat stuff in zone pretty naturally. And he can turn and run and sink his hips and change direction for a guy that's a little over 200 pounds quite well. I think he's going to end up being a will linebacker, a middle linebacker, and probably play a little of both, depending on packages, 3-3-5, 4-2-5, nickel, dime, whatever. And they'll be able to move him around. He'll come off the edge. He'll do different things that make teams not really know from play to play where Parrish will line up. That is when you have the chess pieces to create havoc for an opposing offense. Jaden Parrish isn't somebody that gets the attention he deserves, but he plays in Palm Beach County. And for those that don't know, that is the county that borders Fort Lauderdale's county of Broward, just one county north, but it gets maybe 10% of the coverage that Broward does. Broward's as good a county as there is in the country, but still, that's just part of it. So it is what it is nonetheless. All right. I'm fine with the class, says Vaughn Meyer Jr. Well, I am too, but what specifically do you like about it is what I'm looking for more than anything. I think it's a balanced class. And I don't sit there and say, man, they suck at this position. They better figure it out. There's nothing like that going on. So I believe Florida State has what they need from a basic point of view to get to where they need to go and have an elite recruiting class. They still have a few more guys they're trying to chase, like Jeremiah Smith, but I'm not here to talk about that today. We can talk about Jeremiah Smith on signing day. And if there's any news about him prior to, I'll be more than happy to discuss it. But I don't have anything really to share right now. I'm just like everybody else, kind of waiting for him to make his announcement. And I'm assuming it won't be until a week from Wednesday. So we got 9 days. Let's talk about the defense in general, if you would. Anybody wants to ask defense question, because I think it's a pretty underrated defense class, especially the DB class. Really good. Mike Merrick, what's up, Brian? Go Knowles. Mike, go nuts. Hey, man, what's going on? Vaughn, the DB class specifically, yeah, 100%. Let's just talk about the DB class. I don't know. KJ Bolden gets the most attention. How you rate it, that's hard. But let me do this. Let me talk about the player that most people may not know enough about, and that's Jamari Howard. He's playing at Miami Norland, a really good football player, but he's moved to safety at least part of the time. They've used him at corner too. They might have moved him back some, but I think long-term his best position is safety. He just seems to fit there better, and he's in a better rhythm and flow at that spot. Now, he has the length that you're looking for at corner, and I'm not taking that out. It's a possibility. But if Jamari at 6'1", 170, 175 pounds can figure it out, man, you're talking about the kind of corner that you look at in the NFL. Now, he's going to need to add 20 pounds like anybody else to make it all the way to the NFL. Let's let him get through Florida State first. But when you have guys that aren't rated as high, like KJ's the kid out of Buford that everybody wants, and you're looking at the class and you say, well, how can we use this other really unique and dynamic player who's the second, third, or fourth best DB in the class, depending on how you want to go by ratings for whatever that's worth? That's a good place to be in. Florida State has options. They could play him free safety, strong safety, probably either one of the corner spots. It will work itself out. Also, Ricky Knight is a corner, another kid from Palm Beach County, ironically, that is a really good football player. That's more of a pure corner, but he could play safety if you wanted him to. He has good ball skills. Again, versatility. So, yes, without question, Florida State has a DB class that I think is as good as any in the country, and I don't think there's one better off the top of my head. And that's a congratulations to the entire staff. You know, like DB coach, defensive coordinator, et cetera, get credit. They should. But when you get this many good guys, your area recruiters, your contacts, everybody gets involved to make it happen. It's not a one-person or two-person deal. Everybody deserves a little bit of a credit with that. Josh Johnson, our DB class is elite across the board, best in the nation. Not really going to argue with that. I'll have to look into that. I'm not sure who would be next, to be honest with you. I would automatically, I'll just go with Auburn or Alabama or Georgia. That's the easy pick. LSU's class is terrible, which is shocking. I'm sure that Florida would normally be up there, but their class is imploding. Texas definitely has one. A&M's class is imploding. Those would be some I'd look at. Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State, they all definitely have good classes in the defensive secondary, but I'll take Florida State's over anybody's. So that's something to think about. What does that do for Florida State as a defense? Let's expand upon the DB board and why it's so important. Number one, I'm just going to use a kid that I mentioned him a lot. Conrad Hussey came to the Knowles from St. Thomas Aquinas last year. He's played corner, receiver, safety, etc. I don't know where he's going to end up long-term for Florida State. That's okay. He's very fast. He's a hitter, aggressive kid, but also very intelligent. He wants to take his talents to whatever position is going to give him the best opportunity to make it to the National Football League. A to B. Those are the kind of kids, again, just like Jamari, just like KJ Bolden, and every other kid really they have. Like Lester is, some people think he's the best DB in Florida State's class. That's fine. He could play those spots too. These kids are all going to come in and compete against each other in the spring or next summer or both, and this will work itself out. The goal here isn't for one guy to dominate. The goal here is to have a team. If you heard about different players and stuff kind of coming along under Norvell, he's talked about how the team effort is better, the camaraderie, etc. A lot of times during press conferences this year, one of the reasons why is the talent's better and everybody's happy when they're working with other guys that are really good. Good players want to play with good players. And when you bring more in, that just adds to that opportunity. Now, there's going to be competition and the typical practice fights that happen at every program. But I think Florida State's in a pretty darn good situation back there in the back end. I want to briefly bring up in relation to that, like Hussey was one of the DBs they brought in for the 23 class. But he's not the only one. And if somebody asked me this before. I don't remember where or when, but like, where would you put everybody? And I always back off of that because what each coach thinks and their systems are a little bit different. Where I think a kid should play, meaning like strong safety compared to boundary corner, something of that, like that, that's hard. But Florida State had a big DB class last year. Conrad Hussey's just a guy that I know from covering him 7-on-7 in STA. I knew him pretty well. Kirkland's a kid I loved. He was out of Jacksonville Reigns. Joseph's another kid, played at Chaminade. Not the biggest guy in the world, but really, really good feet. Could play receiver, could play slot, could play corner. Jabril Rawls is a kid that I know out of Pensacola Catholic that really good. Obviously, Jones did something. Not everybody thought that he was going to come in and play. He's done some things. They find enough guys, and whoever competes and does well in practice in front of the coach's eyes, that's who plays. They figure out where they're going to go later. Give you another example. Thomas, the sophomore DB, when he was coming out of high school, out of Niceville, Florida State were the final two, and he was, big-time recruit. I thought he was going to play free safety. I did. Florida State saw it differently. They put him at corner, and he's been pretty darn effective. I expect him to be a starter next year for the Noles. Hard to find 6'2" corners. Take as many as you can get. We kind of figured safety would work out, but I mean, he was such a good athlete. We didn't know if he could play receiver or whatever. I really didn't think much about corner, but that's why you got to get him on campus. You need as many bullets in the gun as possible, another way to put it, to make this work. So without further ado, that leads into the other question. How does the defensive back situation help the Noles long-term with regards to the ability to get pass rush? Well, it's going to be a big deal because Florida State is going to have a lot of guys. They're going to make a lot of plays because they don't have enough time, quarterbacks, to do something against them. And to be really honest with you, that's the bottom line. You can only cover for so long. You have to get to the quarterback. That never changes. So with that in mind, please understand that Florida State is just like anybody else. If the DBs are doing their job, you give them a couple extra plays. Talking about the defensive linemen, that can create strip sacks, etc., and make big plays, and that's a really big bonus. Speaking of really big bonus, eBay Motors. That is an opportunity for you to check out what's going on and get everything that you need for your car and make sure everything is going right. So go to eBay Motors and you can check it out. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy also keeps your ride alive at dive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle, leveled up to peak performance, superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into power, speed, style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts, that's a lot, for your number one ride or die, you'll find a way to get exactly what you're looking for. eBay's guaranteed fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available with United States customers. All right. Let's talk a little bit more about that. If anybody has any questions on the pass rush, I think that's one of my biggest concerns for this next year. You're going to lose Verse. Can't just replace him. That's why the DBs are so important. They might have to get a few more coverage sacks. That's fine. But really what you want is about 2.5 seconds, quarterback takes his last step, and he either immediately gets rid of it or he gets hit, or both. I don't know. Without Verse, how impactful will Patrick Payton be, etc.? You're going to need a few more blitzes to help get home. You're going to be a little more strategic, and you might play a little more coverage. Again, all the talent in the back end can't cover forever, but even if it is a little longer that they're going to have to cover, you just need more guys rotating if that's the case. This recruiting class in the defensive secondary, huge. If you cannot get that going, you're going to struggle long term. Every team goes through the same thing. Everybody's looking for corners. College coaches talk to me. Who have you seen? Who do you like? Man, it's always about corners. There is no way around that. So it is what it is. Let's see what Joshua Johnson says. If FSU gets in the Big Ten, I think we would be dominant. That conference, when you look at Ohio State, who is soft as hell, and Michigan, who lives on defense and a running game, that want to work against them. That won't work. Look, I don't agree that Ohio State is soft as hell. I don't know where you get that at. They're pretty physical up front. Offensive line's not necessarily great, but that's atypical of them. And offensively, they'll figure it out. They'll get better at quarterback. Michigan's weird. The Michigan comment, Josh, I don't know how to grade them because they had really a 2-game season. Penn State and Ohio State, their schedule was garbage, horrendous. I have no idea how to grade them. They're very well coached and they execute and all that, but it would be interesting if Florida State did go to the Big Ten. We need a quarterback. Well, everybody needs a quarterback, Mr. McMillan, and I don't know who it's going to be in the transfer portal. I've kind of went over that. You could check out some of those pods. I'm at the point now I'm just kind of waiting for somebody to announce. There's going to be a dwindling, if you will, between Monday and Friday. I would guess out of the top 10, 12 quarterbacks, 6 or 7 of them at the latest will be committed to a school by Saturday. That's my guess because you don't want to lose your spot. It's usually only one, so that's something to think about. We need a portal quarterback. We know that. Let's see. Do not lose KJ Bolden. Well, Florida State is certainly trying, but Auburn's trying to flip him. I'm sure Georgia is as well. Since we're on the DB topic, yeah, that's something that's going on. I mean, you're going to lose sometimes big-time recruits. Auburn's going after him. I don't know how many in-homes he's going to take. I don't know if he's going to push it beyond signing day. My guess is he's going to enroll early. He's the safety / all-around athlete for Buford High School, just northeast of Atlanta. Huge, huge program in terms of success, sending recruits out and winning state titles. So we'll see, but Florida State is certainly trying to do everything they can to keep him in the class. If we lose Bolden, just go ahead and fire Patrick Surtain as well. No, that is ridiculous. They have the number 1 DB class in the country. That's utterly ridiculous. Any news on Jeremiah? Not really. I mean, I've heard about 5 different things in the last day. I've given up, so I'm not really going to go into what I've heard. It's just spreading randomness. When he commits, he commits. I'm done. Unless I get something like directly from his camp or something, I have no interest. I've literally heard so many things that are so far apart that I don't even want to discuss it. When he signs, we'll know. And I know the kid and some of the people around. I'm done. Love your podcast shows. Thank you, William. I appreciate it. KJ Jack the Great. Do we get a veteran receiver? They better. Switching over to the offensive side of the ball, talk about the portal here. That's a big deal. That's a really big deal. Florida State cannot be in a situation where they go into next season again, I'm assuming KJ and some of these guys are on that recruiting. That'll take care of itself. We'll get back to that in a second. But losing Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, those kind of guys, Shaheem Bow, that's all the kinds of players I expect. We'll see. I haven't even begun to look at Florida State's list for who's announced for the NFL draft and all that. I'm so focused on recruiting right now. I'm not beyond quarterback. I'm not paying attention to it. Quarterback overwhelms me by itself. It is insane how much stuff I go through on a daily basis, texts, getting communication from other people that are in the industry. But the receiver thing is next. It really is, because I think if you have an elite, not the receiver position, but an elite wide receiver that everybody has to know where he's at and on every play, changes your offense. It's not about receiver depth. It's about receiver elite playmaker, period. Florida State had 2 this year. When they were both on the field at the same time, teams were in a conundrum, and the running game excelled far, far easier. Imagine what Florida State's running game would have been this year if they hadn't had all the injuries they did up front on the line. Like, it changed every week in terms of the lineup, it seemed like. Maybe not every, but a lot. Florida State having those 2 receivers out there and then having the wild card with Bell put a ton of pressure on defenses. Really hard to do anything about it. Let's see. John Decker asks, would a Jeremiah Smith, Hakeem Williams get us into the playoffs without an elite quarterback? I mean, it's possible, but everything, whether you want to hear it or not, starts at quarterback. If you're talking about, and it's not clarified for those that are going to listen to this podcast instead of seeing on YouTube, he did not clarify a year. Let me be specific. Barring something very unforeseen, and that probably means Cam Ward, I do not see Florida State going to the playoff next year. They lose too much. But that's my speculation. Again, we're not to the end of the draft situation. So we get to about the 10th or so of January with all the kids finally declaring, seeing what other teams are losing too. Even what you have, you got to know what everybody else does too. I don't know. But getting those two in 25, if you had Jeremiah and Hakeem, they both have been through spring practice, etc. Yeah, you're in business. You could win without any weak quarterback because Norvell's figured out the run game. He's really good at it. Passing game is still more about talent, in my opinion. When you throw it deep as much as they do, Hakeem can go get it. Big dude. Jeremiah is as good a high school receiver as I've ever seen live. Yeah, that would change your offense and make you a playoff contender pretty easily, I think, in year two under with Jeremiah. Once they get their quarterback, I think we will start hearing more on 100%. That's from Sparky. Here's the deal. If you're a receiver, do you really want to go somewhere you don't know what the quarterback situation is? And I'm talking about portal here specifically. It's one thing for a high school kid, you kind of want to know. But a portal guy usually has one more year and he wants to go to the NFL. You got to know. So that's why I've been concentrating, and most people that I've spoken with, I've been concentrating on portal and quarterback. Have to. It's just the way it is. So I'm not really sure what the deal is with that. I don't know the timeline for a guy like Cam Ward. Until Cam Ward announces, it's really rough. And I mean really freaking rough, because everybody wants to know where he's going, and then everything shifts, and I think everybody will go boom. I think he'll announce in the next 3-4 days. That's my guess. If he doesn't, my earlier prediction about all these guys hammering out by Saturday goes away. Some guys might still take some picks. That's possible. But if Ward makes his decision, whatever school it may be, then there's a million different opportunities for guys to be like, okay, well, he's out. Then everybody's going to start grabbing. Because Ward is pretty much the consensus number one quarterback in this single portal class. Speaking of number one, how about Prize Picks? What is Prize Picks? Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. You against the numbers instead of battling thousands of other players, sharks, and different people that just sit around with spreadsheets. It is you picking numbers that go like over 80 yards, one interception or less, etc. Those kinds of things are pretty simple. It is your projection, and you can do combinations as well. With basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball in the Specials League. Also, if a player gets hurt, like in the first half of a football game, you get an insurance with that and you're rebooted. So with that being said, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match of up to $100. All right. Let's talk a little bit about some of the different players that you want to hear about. Whatever you want, we're going to get into some questions. I know I got a few to get to, but please fire away with anything that you want to ask. Defense, offense. Give a comment about the class. If you think you watch film, feel free. All right. What are your thoughts on Luke? Will he be the guy in the future? All right, Mr. Broccoli. We're talking about Luke Cromahawk here. I've seen him play numerous times, mostly 7-on-7, but I did make the trek up to Savannah this year to see him play live. Here are the things that I like about Luke Cromahawk overall. Number one, he's just a very competitive kid. If I've got a quarterback that competes the way he does, like give you an example, there was a 3rd down and long for his team, and he flushed out. There was just nothing there. He had a ways to go, and there was a guy between him and the sticks. Lowered the shoulder and got the first down. Those kinds of plays are oftentimes the difference between winning and losing. Some quarterbacks won't take the contact. Luke Cromahawk will. That's number one. Number two, he's got the arm. I was standing next to him, talking to him pregame at Benedictine Military Academy up there in Savannah, and he's just kind of going through, getting loose. After about 10 or so passes, he had to have this little drill where he kind of goes forward but to his right and just throws off his front right foot, like everything awkward, just completely intended to be awkward. He's throwing it 40 yards hard, like not like this, but like this. That's just natural arm strength. And I mean, he's a pretty strong kid, but he's still lean too. He's built more like a basketball player than he is a football kid in a lot of ways. He's 6'3", 6'4". I love his arm strength. Finally, he will throw short, intermediate, or deep in the middle of the field between guys. He's starting to understand scheme a little bit. Now, as a young player, that's going to cost him at some point. He's going to get some picks. It's going to happen. I think by his sophomore year, he'll compete for the starting job, but he's going to be able to make those throws between guys. I've seen him do it several times, high school level and 7-on-7, and that's the difference. Anybody can throw to the perimeter. There's fewer guys to get around. Quarterbacks that get paid in the NFL can throw to the middle of the field. I think Kromahawk has that ability. So I like him. He fits Norvell's system. He can run RPO. He'll take off and scramble. He can move in the pocket, extend the play, all the things that you hear about in terms of a modern quarterback. Luke Kromahawk fits that. Josh Johnson, not worried about losing KJ or any of these other young men, just enjoying the process, and I think we will close strong on these guys. That's probably true. Which ones stick is always hard. I get people ask, like, when do you know about this stuff usually? And I tell people the same thing all the time. If KJ Bolden called me right now and said, I'm definitely going to Florida State, that would be great. He could do that. I still wouldn't believe it. If you're still taking visits or talking to other coaches, I'll wait till you sign. That's my perspective. It has nothing to do with KJ. I like KJ. This is in general, and this is something I thought about for years. This is not a new thing. If you're still talking to teams in December, it's a signing day deal. Period. That's my take. John Decker. Any idea how Norvell thinks our starting running back will be next year? That's a great question. I was talking to somebody about that yesterday, actually. I assume Tofili will be back. I mean, you never know. But the transfer portal, I haven't heard anything. But I'm just saying, to me, anybody is a possible transfer. That's the era we're in. I would want to start him because he can catch the ball. He's a good runner between the tackles despite being not, biggest guy. And he can hit the home run. He had big plays this year when he scored from a screen or a draw, anything. He can go 50 yards and score. That changes how defenses manipulate their board, their players, their play calls, whether they play a little more conservatively, not come after your quarterback. They're afraid to blitz because if you throw a screen, he's gone. He can change games without touching the football. Not every skilled guy can do that. I would go with Tofili, but that assumes he is back. AJ Duffy has transferred Mr. Decker, and Duffy is not very good. I don't know what happened there, but he was never a factor at Florida State. Josh Johnson, we will have a 12-team playoff next year, and our schedule is not crazy hard. At worst, we go 9-3, 10-2. I wouldn't push that, man. There's a long way. I'm just going to say this. I'm going to say this every year at this time. Do not count your eggs for next year until after. Don't even think about it until after January 15th. Here's why. Transfer portal, it ends on January 2nd. And on the 15th, unless the date, it's right around there for the NFL draft, guys leaving early. People that you and I think should come back to college often don't because all they care about is getting some kind of money. Your roster is going to change in ways you do not expect every single year. Let's wait until next this coming January to think about it. But right now, I do not see Florida State as a playoff team necessarily unless they get one of these big-time quarterbacks. And I have no idea where they're going. I'm just looking at it objectively. But they get Cam Ward. Absolutely. How's it going today? When are we going to get some transfer commits locked up? I think this is Torrey Sims. I think it'll be end of the week. I think that'll start happening. I know there's defensive players, offensive players, et cetera, every position, but quarterback gets so much of the attention. And again, because of recruiting, I'm working on all these recruiting profiles and writing up stuff, all these notes, how I would rank guys, coming like who's got the best class at a tight end or defensive line, whatever it is. I haven't really looked at the portal until we talk about quarterback. That's the only thing I've been following at all in the portal. Anything else is just kind of like sidebar news. I don't have enough time. So I'll know more, just like everybody else, by the weekend. But again, like receiver, are you going to pick a school if you don't know who the quarterback's going to be next fall? In any instance, it's not a Florida State question. No matter who you are, Wake Forest, to Washington State, it doesn't matter. If you're a one-year transfer guy, Like at receiver, forget it. I want to know who the quarterback is. And even if you're not a receiver, a lot of teams, hey, man, I want to go somewhere and win. Do you think a lot of guys really trust Tate Rodemaker, Brock Glenn right now that are outside the Florida State program that haven't seen them or know them? I highly doubt it. So until Florida State figures out that quarterback situation, we're not going to know much about some of the other spots, in my opinion. KJ the Great, which young linebacker will step up besides Lundy and Graham? I like Nicholson. I have no idea. I think Florida State needs at least one transfer. That brings up a great point. Linebacker is one of those spots in today's game, I don't dislike playing young players. I loathe it. I'll give you an example. In the SEC title game, afterwards, they talked to Kirby after they got beat, and he even brought it. I was kind of surprised he did this. The kid that got beat on the wheel route, I think, into the first half for Alabama, it was a really basic route, and he just got completely out of space. It was their third-team linebacker. It's a kid from Tallahassee. That signed with Georgia, was a freshman. They've got a couple guys banged up. He had to play. If they're normal linebackers in the game, Bama may not have scored. They might have lost that game. Playing young linebackers with all the different schemes, pick plays, trying to get one-on-ones against the running back or slot, I want no part. I hate saying this, and I know coaches don't want to bring this up. I don't want a freshman or sophomore sniffing the field for more than a few plays as a linebacker. There's just too many plays that happen like that helped Alabama beat Georgia that it's just scary. And there's nothing as a coach you can do about it. It is uber complex to play linebacker in this passing spread offense that everybody runs. So I think they need at least one transfer portal linebacker that is definitively good in pass coverage. And if you get another guy, this is something else because everybody's in dime and nickel packages all the time. Anyway, take a big safety that you think you can translate to playing some specialty packages, especially if he's a blitzer or good in slot, being a nickel. Those guys are the most valuable now because they're playing an unsung hero kind of role, but it's vital. It's paramount. I mean, it changes how things go. But anyway, I think I would take one. I've got to look into their depth chart more. They played the starters so much this year. We may not know much. I mean, Deloach, he was a clutch player. They're not going to bring him off the field very often. They probably need at least one portal, but one of those young guys, Nicholson's a good pick. He could be the guy, could be somebody else, though. John Decker, do you think all the high-level players that have already entered the portal are we still working for some big names to enter the market? There will be more guys. I think this happened quite a few times, last year. It's hilarious. You get into bowl practices, pick the school. And again, this is not Florida State related. This is across the board. They start practices, and then one day, practice getting ready to start, a coach gets a phone call. So-and-so says, I'm entering the portal. They have no idea. They had no idea. This can happen to Norvell and his staff or any other staff in the country. There is no way to predict. It is random as it can be. So which one will it be? If I had to guess right now, Florida State will sign at least one player from the portal. I don't know what position that has not entered yet. It's the way it is, man. Could be a kid that's at Florida, could be Wake Forest, Pittsburgh, whatever. Who knows? It's so easy to get in the portal. And again, it doesn't conclude until the 2nd of January, getting in and getting out. Florida State's got plenty of time. I think we're talking about enough space for Florida State to make plenty of hay on offense and defense. I'm not real worried about it. But I don't know what I'd say another 10, 15% of the total market still is sitting back and for whatever reason hasn't. Some of them may not even have thought about it, which is crazy. They can get into a disagreement. They decide they're homesick. Their mom wants them to leave. There's a million different reasons. Portal is wild. Jerry Astalinza. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. I'm just going to call you Jerry. We will be a good team. However, to be a great team, we will need help at quarterback, linebacker, and offensive line. 100%. Here's the deal. Florida State they're losing one of their all-time great players in Jordan Travis. They had a very veteran offensive line. And again, as we talked about a moment ago, The two inside linebackers, they played like 60% of the snaps, if not more, maybe 70%. You're not going to just pull that away. Like, I think Lundy's pretty good. I think he's got at least 1 year left, but can't remember off the top of my head. But they're going to need somebody to play early. Like Jaden Parrish, the kid that they've got coming in from Atlantic High School. It's one of the reasons I brought him up. He's damn good. Now, again, I still don't like freshmen playing linebacker, but you can use him in roles like blitz, goal line, etc. I don't like him in 1st and 10 situations. Teams are going to scheme against freshmen at any spot, but it's harder at linebacker because it's more of a dual role with run and pass. That corner, they're never going to say you don't have to play the run. That's not true. But it's your main job is just to stop the dude in front of you. That's your main job. Or on a play, maybe your zone. It's a little more basic. Less mental work, whatever positions they are, those are the ones where freshmen hit the field more often and get more reps. So I think linebacker is the biggest spot to figure out on defense for next year. D-end, obviously, you're losing, another great player. In Verse, I wouldn't want to be in that situation trying to replace him because he's a dude. Everybody knows it. But I also think that Florida State can find one defensive end, and they've got other guys. They should be able to rotate. They'll be in pretty good spot at that defensive end area. Damian Adams. Ward seems to be heading to Miami. I don't know if that's the case. I haven't checked any quarterback news today. If that's the case, I don't know. I think I want to say he was going to visit there, but that's just one guy. I mean, anybody can talk about one player making it happen, but it is what it is. Does he take one visit? I mean, if he only takes one visit, that means they either blew him away or just gave him an offer he couldn't pass on. But Ohio State is allegedly the leader for him based on the odds. I guess a lot of people just think because Ohio State's after him, that with their quarterback history, they would get him. I thought that was kind of odd. I saw a couple of people talk about that. I don't know what that's going on. I wouldn't put a lot of stock in any rumors on the quarterback market. There are a lot of people trying to sell clicks right now. If he visits Miami, they got a shot. Anybody he visits, that team has a shot. The problem with the transfer portal stuff, unlike a recruit, which I could see at a 7-on-7, is I have zero access to him. Zero. I have no way to break anything. Somebody that covered Washington State might have his number, but is he really going to take phone calls? Everything's going to be speculation and what they heard back door. That's not good. So just something to think about. Charles Plott. Afternoon, brother. Any news on the Orange Bowl players opting out? Somebody else in the chat, I'll have to get into that. I have not delved into that at all. I said a little bit ago, in case you weren't in, I've been focused on two things: recruiting, high school kids, and the quarterback position in the portal. That is it. That alone overwhelms me. I have not checked on anything Florida State opt-outs. I'm going to do like one show right around Christmas, maybe even Christmas Day on it to kind of talk about it before the Orange Bowl. I figure by Christmas Day, most of the things that you're going to need to know will happen then, but I haven't even touched it. Somebody wants to post some news in the chat. I truly appreciate it. But again, for any team, I have not looked into it. There's going to be a ton. Like, as a rule, your running back, your quarterback, your left tackle, your pass rusher, and your corner, the premium positions that can go really high in a draft for any team, they ain't playing. If they're draft eligible, bye-bye. So that's something to think about moving forward. What are the windows for a coaching leave? Can it happen whenever? Yeah, it's all contract, man. Most of them will happen in December and January, but most right now. This depends. There's a coaching clinic every year. I think it's in Texas. It may have changed location right after like the Orange Bowl. That can lead to some changes, but most of them December and January. So I don't think we're going to have to worry about too much of Florida State, but you're always going to lose one or two coaches because guys are looking to get coordinator jobs. And if you can go make an extra $500,000 a year, you're going to leave. So always expect changes on the staff. Hey, Jack, we need a tight end. We've got the freshman Thomas. By the way, Landon Thomas is a dude. I'll talk about him here in a minute. We have to get Morlock, but still another one, maybe with 1 or 2 years left out of the portal. I don't disagree. Jaheim Bell is a very unique player. You're not going to replace him by himself. Landon Thomas is a freak, though. No BS. When I saw Landon going into the 9th grade, he was playing on a 15U 7-on-7 team called 229 Elite, based out of South Georgia. And I'm like, I'd take that kid right now. It was hilarious watching him run around because he was about 6'4" when he was 15 years old. And he just, anytime they would throw it up to him, it was a joke. So, great kid, and Florida State got to do. Josh Johnson. I would like to get Cam, but most likely we will get DJU. That could be. As much as a lot of Florida State fans probably wouldn't like it, that would probably be a pretty decent in-between. I don't know what he would do in Norvell's system because I don't think he's a true 100% fit. Because, I mean, he can run, but I don't think he's the pure fit that you're looking for. He's got a cannon. Does he make it? And does he do a great job for Florida State in terms of making the transition? I think he would do pretty well. He's a mature kid, nice guy. I just don't know if he's mobile enough to maximize what FSU fans would really like. No matter what quarterback it is, I'll go ahead and make it happen one way, shape, or form. I'll talk about somebody, go through all the pros and cons why I like him. We'll do another live stream similar to this too. Maybe even talk about like DJ compared to how he's a good fit in some ways, but not as good as Cam Ward and others. There's a lot of ways to do it. I'm open-minded. So we'll talk about that when we get there. Oh, no worries, Charles. He asked a question here a minute ago. I'm open-ended, man. I know I got to go through and kind of repeat stuff. Let me talk a little bit more about some of the Florida State. I'm just going to run down some things. Just in general. Just kind of go through the class in general from a position standpoint. Maybe even touch on, as I go through, a couple guys because I know them that I think could play early. Some of them, like, I don't know, like the kid, the offensive line from California, no idea. I don't know his personality, his maturity level. It's very difficult to say. Landon Thomas, I mentioned him a minute ago, out of Colquitt County, one of the best programs, South Central Georgia, definitely a guy that can play as a freshman. I will be shocked if they don't use him, 6'5", 230-ish, 6'4", 230, whatever. He's a big dude. He could run. He has very soft hands, natural length. He's going to play early. Kai Bates, he's my cornerback that I know plays at Edgewater High School in Orlando. Saw him play uber amount of times. I will be shocked if they don't use Bates because, like Jamari Howard, because of all the guys they've got, like pretty much on the roster, they've got length. He has that, and he's 6'1", 6'2", and he's very, very physical. Kai Bates has played against top-notch competition in Orlando. He's a guy that can make it happen. Cam Davis, I've talked about him numerous times. Elite football player. Could play safety, running back, or slot. He's tremendous no matter where he gets stuck. There was a game in 7-on-7. They had to play him at safety because they didn't have another guy. Somebody got hurt. Came in that game, he had 2 picks. He's just a natural football player. He's at a Doherty High School in Albany. He's one of my favorite kids in this class. Just a great dude. Well, Wayne McCoy. Up top, corner ball, punt return, bubble screen, anything you can think of. He's that kind of guy that can take the play to the house from Central High School in Miami, Florida. I think Lil Wayne is one of the most explosive athletes in the class. I think he's even a better corner, but he wants to play receiver, speed galore. Yeah, he could play early. Mekhi Danzy, running back. He's one of the fastest kids in the country. Forget football, just period. 45.99 in the 400 meters. Elite speed. He's a really unique football player. I'm curious to see how they use him and if they can get him into the rotation next year. If he turns the corner, he's even faster than Tofili. He can go. Elijah Moore is another receiver that's really good, underrated. A good counsel in Maryland, bigger guy, probably a boundary receiver. He's going to be competing against some really good dudes in Florida State's big-bodied receiver room. I mean, they got some big guys. He fits right in. The offensive lineman that will probably have the best chance to play early is Jonathan Daniels. I hope he doesn't have to. He's got a Pine Forest in Pensacola. I think he'll play guard, but he could play some tackle if you needed him to. Very, very good athlete. The guy that I've talked about on the show a gazillion times that's really good is B.J. Gibson. Wilcox County could play DB, running back, receiver, projected to play receiver. I think he's a guy that Florida State will use in some capacity next year, even if it's just special teams. Really good hands, will fight for the football and traffic, just a good ball player. Camden Fryer will end up playing a lot at Florida State. His dad, yes, is that Fryer on the 93 team that won the national championship. Slot receiver, he is a dude. D.D. Holmes out of Gonzaga, another private school in D.C. Good to see the Noles hitting that area because it's got so much talent. Big, long, lanky kid, 250, but could add more weight. He could be a 275-pound kid by the time he enrolls. Wouldn't shock me. He's got the frame for it. Can play 3 tech, 5 tech, whatever. He'll be moved around, and he'll be a chess piece for the Noles. Jaden Parrish, I've talked about, elite linebacker talent. Atlantic High School. I don't like freshmen playing or really sophomores that much at linebacker in today's game, but he's so good, I'm sure they're going to find a niche for him. He can play pretty much anywhere in that front 7 as a linebacker in different roles, 3-3-5. You could use him in a 4-2-5, whatever, a blitzer. He'll find his way onto the field. A kid nobody talks about, the other linebacker, Tamir Hickman-Collins, he's very similar. A little bit bigger than Parrish, but he can play downhill and be a thumper. I think he's a guy that you put him next to Parrish, Florida State to be really good long term. So those are some of the kids that I know pretty well. There are other kids I know a little bit about, but those are the ones I know the best. All right, let's see what Mr. Decker has to say. Any freshman recruits expected to start next year? Jeremiah Smith's the best receiver in the country and the best player. He would start at Florida State. But besides that, I don't like projecting freshmen to play. Landon Thomas, I think, would have a great chance to be at least like a co-starter because as a receiver, he's just a mismatch. He's like a big receiver. I don't really consider him just a tight end. He's that kind of guy. But after that, Cam Davis, if he's healthy, maybe. I don't look at linemen very often. And then Jaden Parrish is a guy in nickel dime package. They could probably play. It's a good question, John. All right, Maximus 1318. I'm just excited on seeing a sophomore Hakeem. I'm a Hakeem Williams, the receiver. He's a really athletic guy out of South Florida, played at Stranahan High School. The class looks like a bunch of ball. Yeah, this is a great class. For anybody just in general, just the basic nuts and bolts, Florida State's 24 class is legit. All right, 726J5. Let's see what he brings to Florida State Seminoles in 24. I'm not sure who you're referring to, but there's a bunch of guys coming that are really good. Maximus. Wonder what the percentage is of O-line coming into high school, starting and making UMPAT. About 0.1. Offensive line is not where you want to get behind them. That's what caused Florida State problems in the past. They've got to recruit O-line better. They've done okay this year, but they're still not where they need to be. If I'm going to complain about anything, the more I look at their class, that'd be the one thing. I like some of the players they have coming in and all that, but they need more numbers out of the high school ranks. Getting the JUCO kid wouldn't be a bad idea either. Let's see here. Tribal Chief Knowles Best. My number one recruiting quest is quarterback, dual threat, dual threat, dual threat. I think you made your point clear. Luke Crumhock's dual threat. And I think you're also trying to allude to portal, I'm guessing. And it'll probably be that. I mean, technically, DJU would be dual threat, but not the way you're talking about. I think he's talking more like a Charlie Ward kind of guy, which Cam Ward would be. I can't say that I disagree with that. Torrey Sims, talk about our running back room and how well they might do next year. Well, here's the problem with that, Torrey. Who's coming back? I think CJ jumped in the portal, if I remember correctly. I'm not sure on Cam Davis and how healthy he is. I assume Topili is going to be the guy. If that's the case, which player or players back up? You might have another portal guy come in because you lost one of the portal. You've got Danzy and you've got Cam Davis, two really good running backs coming into the class, but you don't like to rely on freshmen. Keziah could be a guy that could be your number 2. He's very talented. They need one of the guys that are freshmen and a portal guy. You need to have 4 at minimum that are healthy and know the playbook. And that's really minimum because so many guys get banged up. Florida State went through that this year. Every team does. Got to be careful at running back. I would be careful to the point I would think about taking in 2 running backs, even if one of them is more of an H-back, fullback, big body guy for specialty situations. Who replaces it? Benson? Sam Singleton. I forgot about him. He's really talented. He's out of the Jacksonville area, Fleming Island. That's a possibility. He played a little bit late in the year. I don't know much about how much he's learned the playbook and all that, but man, can he run. Saw him in high school, saw him compete as a junior. I think he has a lot of talent. Florida State will be in pretty good shape, but they need to get one of these other younger guys. I need to know more about him in spring ball. I need to see him. Tribal Chief, Knowles Best. If Benson comes, is he coming back? Not sure. So it's a toss-up. I'd assume he's gone. If Benson doesn't turn pro, I'd be surprised because the number one position to get beat up, based on the numbers, is running back. If you're junior and you don't even think about it, you go. If you're a fifth-round pick, you go. It's unfortunate, but that spot just doesn't have a lot of shelf life. So you get what you can. Maximus, what are the chances Luke comes in and take the starting job? I'd say about 1%. I'm going to say it again. Freshman, bad. Starting freshman, winning big, bad. Those things do not go together. Luke's a guy I know. He's a friend. No. It's a terrible idea. You do not want freshman quarterbacks playing. There's only been one Power 5 quarterback off the top of my head in the last few years making an impact as a freshman, and he even still had some problems, and that was Caleb Williams when he was at Oklahoma. He had that game against Kansas where he was terrible. Freshman quarterback is bad. You do Drake May redshirt. It's hard. Corey Sims, my concern is this running out of NIL money. I am worried. I've heard different things on that, and I don't know where it stands. I'm not going to jump into the thread and say that I know much about Florida State's NIL situation. I've heard about 100 different things, kind of like the Jeremiah Smith deal. That's going to be a story. We get the back end of it. Here's what I do know. And again, this isn't Florida State really. This is any school. I don't care how big your collective is. That's irrelevant. The only thing that matters are the truly elite, financially secure people. We're talking about worth $100 million and up kind of people. How many of them do you have in your collective, or at least have on call, that are willing and really not concerned about blowing a lot of money? 8 figures, meaning like they spent $10 million in a year, they wouldn't care. If you don't have a guy like that in your program, and I have no idea if Florida State does, you're going to have a hard time year in and year out competing, because some of that money goes to facilities, some of it goes to coaching, etc., in some way, shape, or form, because like even if it's not directly from them, then the school can spend more on those things. It's, who goes where doesn't matter. You must have people that always go out of their way to help out the program in big chunk situations, usually like Cam Ward, Jeremiah Smith, something like that. If you don't have guys like that you can just call, it's not good. All right, Tribal Chief Knowles. Would you be shocked if they get DJ over Sam? Who's Sam? I'm not sure who we're talking about with Sam. I assume you mean DJU. Who's Sam? Not really sure on that one. All right. We are pretty much caught up on questions. I'm going to wrap it up here in a minute, but if Tribal Chief wants to clarify, I'll definitely answer that. Try to wrap it up here in the next few minutes. Again, if anybody has any questions about the recruiting class in general, or if you got a portal question, it seems a lot of people still want to answer questions themselves, give opinions. I love that. If you want to ask a question to me on either of those topics, portal, high school, a player, position group, what do we need, those kind of questions, fire away. More than happy. Maximus. Who would you say would be the best bet for? Oh, wow. I have no idea. Running backs, I would go with the least likely, most likely O-linemen that have a chance. O-line typically don't like change as much. Skill position guys leave more often. I'd also say that the quarterback position is the wild card. Do you get Rodemaker back and Glenn back? One of them may not want to come back next year. It's hard to say. Peter Olivia, any news on Cam Ward? I have not heard. I just know that he was supposed to visit Miami, among others. Ohio State's rumored with him. That is the big question in the room, brother. Peter, if I knew, it'd be great, because once he announces Florida State or otherwise, it'll help everybody that's trying to get a quarterback make a move, because I think, in my opinion, most of these people are really trying to do everything they can to get him, and they're not going to move on somebody else until they know. I don't know what's going on with Cam Ward, but that's a big deal. Benson. All right. Let me see what we got here. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with the Benson thing, but what was it you asked earlier? Yeah, that's true. I'm not sure. Let's see here. Tribal Chief, Cam Ward, not Sam. Oh, okay. I mean, if you get DJ, you get DJ. I mean, I don't know where Cam's going. I don't have any insights or contacts up in the Northwest. That is not my bag. I live in Florida. So, I mean, if you get Cam Ward, you can win 10 games. I think DJ's an 8-4, 9-3 quarterback, give or take, with Florida State next year. That would be my guess. Tori Sims says Benson needs to come back. That may be. I highly doubt he does. Running backs go to the NFL because they're worried about getting hurt. Who are the highest non-quarterback players in the portal? Walter Nolan is number one. There are a few other guys in that realm. There's some pretty good receivers. Florida State's after a bunch of defensive ends. But, I mean, Nolan is the one, just obvious NFL top 10 pick kind of guy. He's going to play 1 year. I think he's just going to take the biggest NIL check. Maximus. Oh, thank you. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it, brother. No problem at all. Jeremiah Priest. I expect most of our players will play in the bowl. First was the game too much to sit out. I completely disagree. Let me be clear. It is about the money. It is not about Florida State. They like what's on the shirt, but they like what's on the check more. If Jared Verse plays in the bowl game, I will be shocked. Jonas Burris. Any news on Trayshawn Ward? I have no idea. I've heard his name come up a few times. Until he announces, I'm not going to really put a lot of stock in it. Hey, Jack. Fuller visited Diggs, the D-line, this weekend. Well, I mean, they're at like Danaeus White, some other guys, Florida State's going after them. There's going to be some more high school kids get brought in. We'll see what happens. Fadel Diggs, I assume you're talking about him with Texas A&M. Really good player. That would be huge. I mean, he's a dude that can get after it. I believe he's from New Jersey, if I remember right. Tori Sims, we going after defense and wins championships. I'm happy about us going for that. No doubt about it, man. The teams that win it historically have great defense. That's not any news flash. I also expect to see a lot of guys get involved, excuse me, with recruiting some of these key defensive guys, because Florida State's now got a track record, right? Ventral Cypress and Jared Verse are just a couple of them. They've got quite a few guys in some way, shape, or form that have transferred in the last 4 years, been successful, even before the portal. Jordan Travis, too, at quarterback. They've had a lot of success. All right. I agree with you, man. We can't sweep on our O-line. Don't want to go backward there. Yeah, they got to recruit O-line better out of the high school ranks. Nothing wrong bringing in portal guys to clear it up, but it can't be your mainstay. This does not look like a good portal year for O-line, and I'm being kind. That could bite Florida State in the butt, depending on who leaves for the draft, transfers, etc. Something to think about. Tribal Chief, that's right. It's about the dollars, bills. Yo, yeah, 100%, man. Jared Verse, if he plays in the bowl game, I'll be shocked. Who's the best? Who's the one deep we might have the Verse effect? Ooh. That's a good question. I don't know if there's somebody in there that, I mean, what Jared Verse did, I'm not sure. I mean, there's a couple guys rated on it. Me and nobody really knew who he was because he played at freaking Albany. That might be a 1 in 10 year kind of deal because he came from just nowhere. It's ironic. He's from Dayton, Ohio. He wasn't even recruited by like Big Ten schools. And so he went to freaking Albany. He got bypassed by everybody. So let's see what happens. He got a lot bigger and stronger, kind of a late bloomer, but that's wild. While I'm thinking of it, thanks to all the everydayers to make this great. I'm going to do as many of these live streams as I can while the getting's good this is the busiest month of the year for football. Bowl games, ACC title game, recruiting. You got all the stuff on Twitter and Instagram, etc., all the different news. It's a lot of fun. Talking recruiting is a blast in general, but man, I appreciate it. Please subscribe to this podcast and share it. You got questions? Obviously love to do it. So I'm on the road getting ready to go to the Georgia State Finals tomorrow, but it's a lot of fun doing this. And I really do enjoy speaking with everybody and just talking some football. The reason I said that about defense is because it takes some of the pressure off the offense. 100%. sometimes you're not going to be your best on offense. Look at Florida State. They've got quarterback issues right now. Defense kicked the living crap out of Louisville. I mean, I thought Louisville had a great chance to win that game. What they have, 180? Somebody can correct me if they want to throw it in the chat, but they had like 181 yards of total offense. And they got one of the best play callers in college football, unquestionable, in Mr. Brown. Florida State's defense saved the day. So, yeah, you can win either way. You can win either way. Well, with that, I think I'm gonna wrap it up here just a sec. But thank you again to everybody. Truly do appreciate it. And I'll get out of here on this one for Mr. Plott. How did the podcast go with the Gator guy? I'm glad you asked that. We had a lot of fun with it because we just think Florida is done for this. Like they're losing everybody. It's just buck wild. I just told it like it was. I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of pitching about it, but hey, man, I tell it like it is. So, who's the best high school O lineman to go after? I mean, they're not, to my knowledge, they're kind of done with O line and recruit unless they flip somebody. It's too late. Josh Johnson, what is up with some of these big O line that have been developing, like Armelia and other guys? I haven't heard anything. That's why I'm concerned. It's a great question, Josh. Florida State's got to figure that out because if you don't, relying on the portal eventually is going to bite you. You need to have sophomores and juniors become seniors and fifth-year seniors. They're starting for you at Florida State. If you sign star guys that are developmental, somebody's got to take that ring. We'll see in the spring, but I need to see it happen, and that's the bottom line for me. So, well, I'm going to wrap it up with that. Thank you to everybody. I'll be back again later this week. Probably do a Wednesday show. If I can't tomorrow, I will not have a show. I got so much going on with the state and traveling. Not going to have a Tuesday show, but I will have one pretty much every day thereafter. Definitely Thursday through signing day in some capacity. Might have multiple shows depending on what happens, portal, etc. When I have a live show, I try to get something up early as I can, but I just need specific topics and stuff to talk about. So everybody have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.